Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Apex Legends, the board game, which is brought to you by Glass Cannon Unplugged. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games generally run about 60 to 90 minutes. Initiated sometime around the year 2729 on Solace, the central planet of a cluster called the Outlands. The Apex games are immensely popular and widely televised blood sport owned and organized by the Mercenary Syndicate, the undisputed governor and protector of peace for the region. Originally hosted in a defunct military base on the island of Kings Canyon as an overhauled continuation of the old blood sport called Thunderdome. The Apex games have since spanned multiple worlds and have seen numerous participants join the fray with different backgrounds and often ulterior, unusually mutually exclusive motives. The reward for perseverance is fame, cold cash, and sometimes a lucrative career. But it all comes at the very real risk of serious physical injury or, more commonly, death. Apex Legends, the board game, is a highly competitive miniatures game based on the hit battle royale video game Apex Legends, in which opposing teams of Legends warriors with exceptional combat skills and abilities airdrop onto a gradually shrinking battleground to compete for fame and glory in a series of matches referred to as the Apex Games. Players make use of a wide variety of weapons and actions at their disposal to work together with their squad mates and fulfill the ultimate goal of eliminating their opponents and being the last one standing. First and foremost, let me just say that I am a huge fan of the Apex Legends video game, and what they've done here in the board game is truly capture the feel, the same gameplay that you experience in the video game. It does have that fast-paced skirmish type board game going on, right? But it definitely captures elements of the video game, and they've done it so well. And obviously, look at this table presence alone. They're amazing with the buildings, all the miniatures, and again, this is just prototype. I can't wait to see the final version of it, and they sent me the dioramas as well to put all the characters on that you could display with the cards and so forth, even use it in the game if you want as your main base of operations for your character. But I love all the detail, the attention to detail in the game, and you know what? This video is going to be just a broad overview of what's going on in the game. If you want a real play-by-play, the Dice Tower guys at Dice Tower Central have done a live play of this. You definitely should go check it out. It's blow by blow to see exactly how each turn functions and what might happen in numerous situations for sure. But what they gave us here to play is a basic scenario. It is just a squad game where 2-on-2 here that I played, and it's just who can eliminate who first. But I love the fact that it does have this big sandboxy feel. You can make up your own scenarios, you can do whatever you want, and they're going to give a whole slew of options as you try to dive into this and experience some of the different types of game modes. So I got 4 different characters to look at, and the main one, the one I like the best, is Gibraltar. He is fantastic. I like his abilities and powers and all the things he brings to the table. But you'll get this legend board, which is your character board, where you have a backpack at the top, and at the bottom is the gear that you've stored, and at the very bottom of the board is your cooldown phase for certain abilities and things that you're activating, different devices, things like that. You have your feat cards directly related to your character, and of course your ability cards, and then just a main character card. Also, that tracker for health and shields, as well as slots on the board for weapons. And we'll talk about how you get those weapons, but you'll see all these tokens are going to be ways to give you things to activate, like health, or give you more shield power, or give you ways to augment your weapons, which is so cool because you can change up your weapons to be what you want them to be and be more effective or more efficient to taking out your opponents. But you can only have 2 weapons at any one time, and you know, this is just kind of your basic setup for your character. And every game is going to be very different based on what the scenario is and what you're doing and how you're going about it and who you're teaming up with. So in general, your squad mate will be sitting next to you on one side of the board and your opposing team on the other side. So those are the basics of what you have going on for your legend board. But for these gear tokens, you have several different flavors. Well, let's see, you have 4 different flavors of gear tokens. You have your common ones, which are gray. You have your blue ones, which are rare. You have kind of a pink or purple, which is your epic. And then you have golden tokens that are legendary gear that you can get and apply to different weapons and your character and so forth. So those gear tokens are going to be key to helping you be successful through the course of the game. And as you'd expect, there's a round tracker. Here we have 9 rounds we're going to go through, unless you meet the criteria of the mission before that. But there are certain key points along the way. You have the initiative track at the bottom. So what's going to happen here is that we have the red team, they're going to fully activate, and the blue team will fully activate, and then you get to this transition phase. The round marker moves, and then if the round marker actually hits one of the special tokens at the top, you're going to be drawing a card to see what happens with this circle or the shield around the skirmish starts to close in around the players. So if you have to be caught outside that, you're going to take some damage. Based on what round you're in, you'll take that much damage. And this goes straight to your health. It doesn't impact your shield at all, which is pretty brutal. And then you're going to do various cooldown. If you have any active things that need to be cooled down, they're going to move along the track, getting ready for use later. And then finally, each player will draw one more of their feat cards. So you have more cards to work with in the upcoming rounds or upcoming activations of your team. So the game flow really goes like this. First, you have the legend or your character loadout, where you're going to draw a number of weapon cards, you're going to draw a number of common gear tiles as well as some rare gear tiles. And then you got to make some tough choices about what you're keeping and putting in the slots versus your backpack versus what you're going to equip right away, what you're going to put on weapons and so forth. So it really is your loadout of your character, much like you do at the start screen for the video game. And again, those gear tokens will give you so many options. You might have things like helmets, or you might get some better body armor, or you might just have augments for your weapons. And there's different nodes on the weapons, some of them to show what type of augments can go on them. So you have to match at least one of the nodes that it shows. But you also have consumables like health and shield power, as well as explosives like grenades. Yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of different options for these gear. And again, like I said, you have to make tough choices about what you're equipping versus what you're putting in your backpack. Phase 2 is the map drop, where you're falling from the sky and entering into the battle zone. Now, you can pick all these different sides, and previously, based on the scenario and the setup, you will put together a zone entrance board where you have various things, various items you're going to get as you come in. So in this case, we have some epic loot tokens we're going to get, as well as a reward. So some of the rewards might be moving 2 extra spaces or getting another loot. So it definitely depends on where you want to land. You can go anywhere really, but it definitely encourages the players to spread out around the board to get all that additional loot to start. Phase 3 is the final encounter. This is basically where the rounds begin and the skirmish can kick off. So the main thing to know here, just like with any good skirmish game, is the fact that you have to have line of sight. If you see them, they can see you. There is no hiding where you can shoot them and they can't shoot you. But you do have different levels of buildings that dictate some blind spots, as well as half walls. You've got full walls, and you've got the different loot chests that give you a partial hide behind as well. And various effects can change up what's happening based on how well you're hidden, or quote unquote hidden. But again, you have to be mindful about movement for that line of sight as well. Moving over a wall is going to cost you 2 movement when you do that, because it's just going to take you a bit to crawl over the wall. So otherwise, you can move diagonally, you can move orthogonally, but you have to have line of sight on someone to shoot them. Along with the buildings and walls, you'll also have other types of terrain potentially based on the scenario. You'll have trees or whatever it might call for. But here on this map, you'll see that we have the respawn beacons. Yes, so if you're eliminated, that's where you'll come back, wherever's nearest your teammate. And then you have the supply bins, and there's also resupply drops that could happen. Not in this scenario, but there are drops that could happen. They have some really cool tokens for that, or not tokens, but miniatures for that. And of course, the walls, the circle that closes in, will be on the edge of the board to start, but then it's going to start to close in on everybody. So, it really varies based on the scenario, like I said, but here, those are the basics of what you're doing. And what's cool about these resupply bins, they actually open. So you can tell when one has been used, and you'll go to the bags to pull the different gear tokens from there. There's actually cards that you'll draw to see what's in that supply bin. So you'll go to the bags, you'll go to the weapons and pull whatever is required. And then you have to make some tough choices about where you put things. But those are really cool. And again, these bins stay open, so you know that one has been used. Now, every time your character or your legend activates, you're going to have 2 activation points to spend. You have to decide where you need to be, how you need to move, and again, keeping in mind all the movement options and restrictions for moving through walls and moving up buildings and so forth. But you can move twice Or you can choose to move one and interact, like with a supply bin, or with items that have been dropped on the board by another player. Or you can choose to move one and destroy something that can be destroyed. Or you can choose to move one and do a melee attack. You can choose to move one and use a consumable like health or shields or a grenade. So you have lots of different options how you mix and match those. Those are your basics, but then you also have your deck of cards that will have various actions and points that you'll need to spend on those cards, but some are free actions as well. So you need to keep all that in mind as you put together your best strategy for your turn. But again, you only have 2 AP to work with on that particular activation. And it's important to note that some of your cards are only reactionary cards. Maybe before someone takes a shot or after someone takes a shot, you'll play these cards. Which brings us to shooting. If you do choose to shoot, that is basically all you're doing for that particular turn. And again, you have to be mindful of blind spots and line of sight before you take that shot. So let's take a look at this SMG. Now there's obviously ammo requirements for the weapon, and you'll see that on the top right, but these numbers on the left are key. First, we have your best range. And you know, it really is key to be within that best range. You can't be closer and you don't want to be further away, because then you're going to increase your hit threshold and so forth. And the lower the number for hit threshold, the better. So the next number is your fire rate, how many aim cards you're going to draw. The third number is that hit threshold. In the case of the SMG, it's a 50 plus. So again, the lower the number, the more likely you are to hit. Then you have your base damage as well as a headshot damage bonus. So there might be effects too that the weapon is capable of that you'll need to be mindful of. And then down at the bottom of the card is where you would add those augments, those different gear items that give you specialty around this weapon, increasing some of these values or lowering the hit threshold and so forth. So definitely depends on how you've augmented this weapon and how best it's going to be used. But let's look at the base here. So first we're going to draw 6 of the aim cards and put them up against the aim board. Now there are ways to augment this, but you're going to start at 0 and move across from there. And you also might play a shot enhancement card from your hand. But before you take that shot, your opponent may play a reactionary card. And they have the option to play a before card and after the shot card. So all kinds of different things can happen in these fights. But you're going to take a look at all the cards, all the aim cards in play, and you're going to check the values to see how many hits you got. And there's some various icons at the bottom of each of these cards as well. So the icons might show that you have a headshot bonus. If you're at a higher level than your opponent, then you might get an automatic hit. Or if you're at a lower level than your opponent, then it might be an automatic miss. As well as if they're behind, your target is behind a half wall, that can also trigger an automatic miss if the card has that icon on those aim cards. Along the aim track, you'll start to see too that from that 0 position out, that there are negatives that are going to impact each of the cards, making it less likely to hit as well. So if you can add stability to your weapon where it backs up and you get a plus bonus to the aim cards that come out, that's going to be key as well. But looking at those basic weapons, you'll see that you're going to always start at that 0 position and move out, and the weapons are going to work very differently one from another and how those aim cards appear. One might be every other based on a recoil. Some really neat things going on with this system and how you determine hits and who might take the damage. And you'll need to be mindful and remember the different ability cards you have, which are fantastic. In Gibraltar, he has these 2 cards. He's got the Dome of Protection and Defensive Bombardment, which are both super visual out on the board as well. But again, those are going to require cooldowns. So if you activate those, you'll put those tokens in the cooldown phase as it moves along and so forth. So having those special abilities for your character is key. You need to utilize every aspect of your different legendary characters for sure. And then, you know, it really comes down to the scenario, who wins, depending on the parameters and what's required. And you hope you're part of the squad or team that comes out on top. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, you know, I was already a big fan of the video game, so the likelihood of me enjoying this was quite high, and I had the best time. And I can't wait to try some of the other scenarios. And what's great is that they've really captured the essence of the video game into the tabletop. So well done. Little levels of detail down to the supply bins that are open once they've been used. I just love that aspect. And so many different weapons, so many different combinations, almost like you get to create your own weapons at time by how you augment them with different gear and so forth. Like that aspect so much. And you have to be mindful about ammo and getting that as well. And there's that time pressure of the circle or the shield wall closing in around everyone, which again, I like that kind of pressure in games. So this had so much, the fun factor for me was quite high. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.